Amber, do we have any attendees?
Yes, people are coming in. We have about 18 so far. Last I checked, we had about 36 people registered, so we'll give people a couple of minutes to join.
Okay, great.
Okay.
All right, I'll take a quick moment to the attendees. My name is John McGran. I'm on the Public Art Board. We're going to allow another minute or two for attendees who registered in advance to join. So be patient with us, and we'll start the official thing in just a moment.
All right, are we ready to begin?
I think.
Yeah, we can go ahead.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jadeline Rosario. I'm the Public Art Community Engagement Manager for the City of Lancaster. Been working here for about 8 months, and I was hired to manage a program called Pace Neighbors that will be starting early fall. I'm going to introduce you to my colleague Amber Straza, who will be running you through the Zoom technology this evening.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. So later in the meeting, you're going to have a chance to engage with us and the artists. So there are a couple of ways you can do that. One is through the chat. So you can see here, especially if you're on mobile, how that's going to show up. There's going to be a chat icon, a raise hand icon, and Q&A icon. So if you want to put any questions or comments in the chat, you can go ahead and do that. Or when we prompt you, you can raise your hand. We'll see that on our end, and then we'll give people turns to speak. Because we have a limited amount of time and quite a few of you with us, we ask that you keep your comments to about 90 seconds, but we're not being super hard about that. So if you go to the next slide, this is some more instructions, just depending on which device you're using to join us. So if you have any questions about this, go ahead and put them in the chat and I will help out. If you're calling in today by phone, in order to raise your hand, you just dial *9 and we'll see. And I'll just call you out by the last 4 digits of your phone number. That is all.
Can I add one comment to that, Amber?
Sure.
One of the things that we noticed on Saturday, if as an attendee you do choose to raise your hand, it's helpful to us if you can unraise it once you've had an opportunity to speak. Otherwise, sometimes it was difficult to know whether somebody had left their hand raised or was raising it for a second time.
Yeah, that would be great.
Thank you, John. I'm going to run through some meeting norms. We want to hear from you. Please use chat functions. Raise hands feature for dialogue during survey questions portion of the presentation will be available. And please be respectful to our guests and others on this call and keep comments brief to give time for others to participate. And now I'm going to let Lenny and John take the mic.
Okay.
I'll ask my colleague John McGran to start.
Yep, and I'm just going to briefly introduce myself, and Len will do the same. So my name is John McGran. I live in Lancaster with my family. We also own a business here in downtown Lancaster. I have served on the Public Art Board for I think about 6 years, and I just really enjoy getting to be part of community dialogues and community engagement processes like this. So thank you for joining us tonight.
I'm Linwood Sloan. Most of you know me as Lenny. I am the chairman of the Public Arts Advisory Board in Lancaster and the co-convener of an artist affiliate conversation, monthly conversation called Art Talks. I have been a community activist, artivist, and artist activist for more than 40 years, from the National Endowment for the Arts to the government of Pennsylvania, and now the city of Lancaster. My colleagues call me a gun runner for the arts, which I claim to be. And most recently this morning, a bio of me said art evangelist, which I'm still wondering how they got to that place, but I claim it to be true. So I'll be here to evangelize. My email address is catalytic agent, and that is my goal in life, to be a catalyst for the arts.
All right. I'm going to take just a moment here to walk us through the agenda and talk about our plan for this evening. So we're going to start the presentation with an introduction to R&R. They're going to walk through some background on their firm and some of their projects. Following that, there will be a question and answer period where we welcome you to ask them questions or give them your feedback. We plan for that to run for until about 7 o'clock. Following that, we're going to transition to some time for you to respond to some survey prompts, and then we can wrap up the meeting by talking about what to expect next. Before we get to the introduction of R&R, I just wanted to take a moment and add a few comments about this project and what we're hoping for tonight, and just some background. The first thing, I wanted to just make sure that this is clear, which is, the project in question is a Lancaster Parking Authority project, and the artists were hired by the Parking Authority. They were selected by a committee. The city had a representative on that committee, but this is a Parking Authority contract as part of the construction project. This project is not being paid for with city funds, and there's been some confusion about that. So I wanted to just make sure that that was clear at the start. The other thing is to just make, I know I agree with, and I know that there's some strong opinions about a preference for work like this to be performed by local artists, either from the city of Lancaster or the state of Pennsylvania. And I could tell the Public Art Board agrees with that as a priority, but we also know that, for certain projects, and I might agree that this is one where, a level of experience and expertise is helpful to make sure that we have a beautiful project that endures along with the anticipated lifespan of the building. And so I think there's some factors there where, in this case, we may not have had the experience in our community. Maybe we do. I don't know the answer to that, but I wanted to acknowledge that and add a comment about that. I would also say, one of the things that I think we should, with that, knowing that that is a goal, I think we should also be proud of the fact that this community is attracting artists who have a broader footprint across the nation and across the world, and that's something that we should be proud of. So, for our part tonight, the part of the City of Lancaster and the Public Art Advisory Board, our goal tonight is to lead some community engagement. And for me, the purpose of this is to hear as much from you as possible so that we can send Roberto and Rosario home with as much information and as much input from our community so that they can return to their studio and work with as much community input as possible and design the best work of art for our community as they can. And I know that there are a lot of strong opinions going back to some of the earlier feedback we heard 18 months ago about this. And I will tell you, I mean, we welcome all comments tonight, to the extent that you can focus your comments on positive, comments to help inform the artists. That's going to give our community the best chance to be proud of the work that Roberto and Rosario do for us. If you have comments about the process that led us to this point or other aspects of this that may not be necessarily germane to tonight's conversation, I'm going to drop my email address into the chat as soon as I finish speaking, and you're welcome to communicate with me directly at that email address, and I'll make sure that any comments that you have get passed along to the rest of the Public Art Board and to the city. We do have limited time today, so if there are discussions that start to unfold that deserve longer conversation, we may ask you if we can move the meeting along. If that is the case, one of the things that we can commit to is if a question or a comment that gets made tonight deserves a more thorough and thoughtful response, somebody will follow up with you after the meeting with more on that. And again, just please be mindful, this is a great opportunity for us to tell Roberto and Rosario what we think, what we dream about this project looking like, and please, contribute as much as you can, and give them as much as possible to work with. So thank you very much, and I appreciate everybody being here tonight. Lenwood, you want to take it from here?
Yes. Before we go on, I'd just like to say that when you think of the Public Arts Advisory Board, I'd like you to think of an equilateral triangle. At one point of the triangle is the artist and artist activists. At another point of the triangle is the community both capital C and small c. And at the third point of the triangle is the administration of the Public Arts Office. Unfortunately, Lancaster does not have an arts council, a film council, or an arts activist group. The Public Arts program is really about negotiating the shared space and the common grounds of our landscape. So we apologize if we do not fill all of the obligations that a normal arts council would be. But tonight we're talking about the negotiation of the public space of the Ewell Plaza as we change the climate and dynamic of art as a point of public engagement. What a great set of artists we have to introduce to you tonight. R&R Studios, the collaborative office of Roberto Bayar and Rosario Marquardt, is a multidisciplinary practice weaving together visual arts, architecture, design, and the city. Celebrated, as one critic put it, as architects of hope, their work proposes encounters of stories and spaces which alternate between the personal and the public, the quotidian, I love that word, and the extraordinary, the poetical and the political. R&R Studios works erase boundaries between art and life and suggest imaginary solutions to a better world. Rosario and Roberto are known for creating social sculpture for public pleasure. All together now in downtown Denver, the biggest M in the world in Miami, the living room, their iconic Miami home turned inside out, Public Square in Mexico, DF and Copenhagen, and most recently, Besame Mucho, the super billboard at Coahuila Music and Arts Festival in 2016. All suggest a world of possibilities where the fantastic becomes part of everyday life. Their award-winning practice has been published in over 250 publications worldwide and exhibited in solo and group shows in museums, institutions, and galleries in America and New York. They have received American Institute for the Arts Awards, and Americans for the Arts selected their projects among the best public art of 2007 and 2013. Rosario and Roberto have known each other since childhood, received diplomas in architecture from the Universidad Nacional de Rosario in Argentina, and later studied in the legendary Institute of Architecture and Urban Studies in New York City. Roberto has been a visiting artist at the Getty Research Center in Los Angeles and visiting professor at Harvard University and Cornell University, together with Rosario, visiting artist at the American Academy in Rome. In 2007, they published The Peace Project. In 2011 and 13, M, The Living Room, and the Museum Works, the first 3 volumes of R&R Studios' incomplete works. Roberto Bejar and Rosario Marquette currently teach at the University of Miami School of Architecture. Un abrazo fuerte for our 2 guests tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You guys need to stop sharing so we can do. There we go. Share. Let me bring these back. Excellent. Can you guys hear us?
Yes, indeed.
Thank you all for your presentation. We're really, really happy to be here. We begin with us at the very center of the page some time ago. As it has been already mentioned, Rosario and I have been together since we were kids.
Almost.
And believe it or not, that's her and me looking towards the future. As it has already been mentioned, we studied architecture together, and some time ago, more than we can count, we came to the States to first study and then eventually moved to Miami, where we have lived for the past 30 years and change. We begin with a work that in fact is not a public art work. And I should say first, we have selected, Rosario and I have selected, is it 7? I think it's 7 works of public art to share with you, to in a way, kind of share our approach to public art. And perhaps there might be some questions from you in connection to those works. In any case, we begin with a work that in fact is not a public art work. It's a world poetical map. It's a map that really explains fully our intent in terms of art in general and public art in particular. The word poetical map, this is a map that you can all recognize, but it's somehow different from the one that you may have seen. It's the map that we all have seen in primary school, perhaps, but somehow, as many people ask us, this seems to be upside down. In fact, in our opinion, it's not upside down. It's not a world political map, it's a world poetical map. And it's not upside down, it's just looking at the world from a different star somehow. So we start with this, and this is in a way the approach that we take to the development of public art works as well. We always try, I think, to do projects that are that are linked to our experiences, and that you are able to, that we all are able to recognize. Here in front of you, 3 of our best known public art works, all of them what we call instant landmarks somehow. On the left of your screen, the living room in Miami, in the center, All Together Now, in downtown Denver, Colorado, and on the right, M. We start with these 3 pictures. The three projects are built like architecture, and in a way they reveal our background in architecture. Rosario, you want to say something? Yes. I can feel it.
And the reason that we choose these 3 projects to start is to underline that we don't work with just one material. Like, for example, we work in glass, or we work in metal or lights. We try to work, because our architectural training, we can work in different materials depending on the circumstances. So for us, first, it's very important to understand the place where we are working, the geography of the place, the history and culture of the place, the weather, and the event itself. What are we doing? For what we are doing this project? And then we choose the materials, the language, and what we want to express. But all of them have something in common, that is that it are pieces that are in a way familiar to all of us, so we can all relate to these pieces, but at the same time fantastic, or sometimes, or at least it surprises us. But in a way, it connects with each of the individuals that see the piece, because it's something familiar that we have seen it, but it's out of context in a way.
So for example, we start with Yam in a way, because, and what we want to share with you in this image is a kind of consistent relationship between the model, the drawing, and the reality of the project fully constructed, fully built. That is one of the things that we're most proud of, because it's very, very difficult to do a model that is 24 inches high, to do a drawing that perhaps is 36 inches high, and to do a project that is 42 feet tall, somehow very much the same, very, very much the same. There's almost no difference between the idea at the very beginning of the project
concept
and the realization of the project fully built. So in this case, the project is built with concrete blocks and reinforced concrete. The project that we see now, altogether now in downtown Denver, as I already mentioned, is not built in concrete. It's a metal project. It's a project built in aluminum. It's pre-constructed in a way and taken into an ensemble, if you wish, in the place. As I mentioned, it's also 42 feet tall and includes something else that in the case of the M didn't exist. And that is that on the one hand, it's an instant landmark, the building blocks in a way that remind us all of our childhood, like the M may remind us of the childhood that we share in the kind of letters that we played as we were trying to ensemble words and phrases, etc. But in this case, it also includes the wall, the yellow wall, and the bench in the back. And in so doing, what we tried to create was not just a landmark, but also what we call a social sculpture, a place of encounters, a meeting place, if you wish, within in this case, downtown Denver. We choose to call the project All Together Now, but it was an incredible surprise. It was an incredible surprise to find out that the project was taken over by youth in the area.
Yes,
and
because there was a school close by.
Yeah, and it was rebaptized as the Yellow Submarine. So we liked that a lot because we're big fans of we're old enough to have known the Beatles. So and of course the project has some sort of music contained within in the phrase All Together Now. I should say that the event in that case, what was the event in that case? Well, the event was the very will of the people funding the project, the Downtown Development Authority and the owner of the hotel nearby, to somehow collaborate in the redevelopment of downtown Denver, in bringing back people, into downtown Denver. So that was the event, and therefore the need, in our opinion, for a place where people can meet with each other. So it's kind of saying, okay, let's meet at the Yellow Submarine, as the kids rebaptize the project, or in our own mind, let's meet at All Together Now, at the building blocks, if you wish. Something that we have played with, building blocks, something that we have played with in order to create phrases through which we communicate with each other as kids. But something that therefore we can recognize when seen fully built in downtown Denver, but at the same time, it sort of brings a sense of awe, a sense of, wow, what is that? That's, I know, but in fact, this is the first time that I see it. In this case, what we have, so therefore the idea of social sculptures, of projects, of art projects, if you wish, in the public realm that don't belong to us solely, that they're not about Rosario and Roberto, about Roberto and Rosario's own thoughts and dreams, but we are kind of interpreters in a way of dreams and hopes that we see are present within each of the places where we work. So therefore, we call it social sculptures. In this case, we see in the left the very kind of bunker-like warehouse in Miami. You wouldn't be able to tell that it's in Miami because it's fully enclosed in a way in the warmest of weathers in the US, and one that really promotes supposedly life outdoors. But here we have it totally boxed in to the warehouse. So on the left, the very first sketch of the idea that we presented the developer in a way. Now, the developer came to us and told us, Rosario, Roberto, I have this fantastic project for you. You have this warehouse all for you, and you can do whatever you want. Sorry, but I have very little money. But you can do whatever you want. So we said, that's perfect. That's great. We love the challenge. So we decided to, in a way, quote unquote, steal, if you wish, a little bit of private space from the warehouse for the neighborhood, for the public in a way, in a place where there's no public space, this within the design district of Miami, in a place where there's no public space to speak of, we decided to, quote unquote, steal a little bit of the private space of this warehouse in order to develop what later on became the living room. And this process whereby we kind of turn a home, if you wish, as Lenny already mentioned, kind of inside out in a way. In a way, for us, it was a way of remember ourselves playing with doll houses, as we imagine, in a way, being within a doll house, and now fully grown, kind of entering into that dollhouse, but in this case, 42 feet tall again, and within the urban landscape of the city, right? So in a way, we created a platform that performs both as a kind of stage for everyday life, and one that kind of in which we are both actors in a way, and witnesses of a play that is disclosed before us. Here we see the first sketch and the reality of the project, fully built. That's actually me, for you to have an idea of the scale. You know, it's a living room that we can recognize as such because it has the handmade wallpaper that perhaps we imagine there is in a living room, but it's of a scale that we have never seen before.
But also the project is a call of attention to our city, because what is happening now in contemporary cities is that the cities are getting much more enclosed, that you need to go through a barrier to go to a neighborhood, or you have to present a card, or the houses are so enclosed, and we live within AC, air conditioning, because it's super hot outside. So what we are proposing, no, this is Miami, it has a beautiful weather, we should open our houses. We should have an architecture that is more responding to the weather, and to try to create social spaces within the city, opportunities for people to meet.
And this is actually the key. The window that you see, we kind of frame it as a painting in a way. The frame of the window-like opening has the profile of a painting frame, and that is to present the sky, the ever-changing sky, as a kind of 1001 paintings of that very sky. With that project in mind, we were, once that project was very popular, we were very lucky, it was very well received, et cetera, et cetera. And the director of the Museum of Art of Fort Lauderdale came to us with a similar preoccupation. We have no money whatsoever. It always happens to be the same. The artists within the audience will know this. We have no money whatsoever, but you have to solve every single one of our problems, please. And in this case, the problem was, again, that the building that had been done, the museum building that was done in the 70s, was fully enclosed, fully air conditioned, as Rosario said, fully air conditioned.
You couldn't even find the door to enter the museum.
It was pretty much, again, like a bunker of sorts. No windows, very difficult to find the entrance, the doorway, the way in. And believe it or not, this in front of a park and in front of a river that leads towards the Atlantic Ocean. It's really weird when you think about it. So again, they told us, we need to fix this. We need to fix this somehow. Is there a way that we can do that? And what we proposed was to add a roof, and here below you can see what the space was like. I remind you of what the space was like, and above you can see what we propose, which is to create a kind of public loggia, to create a kind of super front porch in the tradition of the architecture of the South, but also of Lancaster, where we have seen many houses. Here in Lancaster, we're so happy that we had the opportunity to come back. We need to say it right away. We congratulate you 1,000 times for having such a beautiful city. And one of the things that we saw was that many of the houses also have these kind of front porches, actually. You have the typical townhouse that comes right to the street, but you also have those that have front porches in front. And the front porch is very important because both here and in the South, in the American South, there are places of encounter. There are places that are not inside nor outside. They're somehow like threshold in between one experience and the other. And there are this space where one feels that one safely interact with others in a way. Hey, how are you? How is the family doing? You can interact with the other, within the safety of your own place in a way. And that's a really cool feeling, in our opinion. And here we developed this idea, in a kind of extraordinary way, perhaps,
but
kind
also,
of celebrating by means of the different columns, the wallpaper again, this possibility that the museum offers to us.
Yes, but also makes the streets much more alive when the buildings or the homes opens to the street. So it's very important for the life of the city and the street.
So here you see the before and after kind of experience, a museum fully enclosed, fully air conditioned, fully inward looking, and one that begins to perform both as a museum with a specific needs, but also one that opens itself up to the community, and that makes and that makes an inviting gesture towards the public. This project, and I don't have too many more, so don't worry about it. So this project is a project in Sunny Isles. Sunny Isles is north of Miami Beach, where we in fact live. We live in the Art Deco district of Miami Beach. And here you see, this is a Marriott hotel. The community became really concerned about the look of the front of the hotel, which holds, in fact, in this case, the parking garage. Immediately above the entrance, you have a garage about 4 stories high on Collins Avenue, which is right in front of the ocean. So they ask us, what can we do? Well, we can make it perhaps more inviting, and we can make it more inviting perhaps by celebrating the act of traveling and the arrival to a place. And we can do that perhaps with flowers. And we can do that perhaps with flowers because in every country, in every language, in everywhere, flowers are a symbol of friendship. Flowers is something that we give to those that we love. And as my mother, and I'm sure your mothers taught you, Roberto, be sure that whenever you go to your mother-in-law, in my case, home, make sure that you take flowers because she will love you forever. So here we went with flowers. And in this case, the flowers are white because they are in Miami Beach, and Miami Beach is a marine city. And we thought that, together with the sky that is always blue, it was a color that fitted really well with the marine quality of the place. We also wanted to show you the scale on the left, actually, and the care that we put in terms of the detailing of the project.
Yes, these flowers are around 5 feet wide and diameter and made out of aluminum. So they are super heavy to install. And that's why we were able to install one by one.
One by one,
and
we installed one by one.
If you look at the corners, the flowers are bended to make this sharp turn in the facade. So it looks like a continuous
a screen of sorts, I remind you that behind this facade, there is a parking structure, again, with about 4 stories of parking. So we have been very lucky. The project went really well. And so one day somebody called us and tells us, Roberto, Rosario, there is the artistic director of she was very, very excited, the artistic director of Coachella Music and Art Festival is here in town, and he really wants to meet you. It was a Saturday afternoon. Do you guys have any time to meet him? He's to be here for today only, and he's leaving. And we are so old, so ancient in a way that we didn't know at that time what Coachella was about, believe it or not. And Rosario very quickly looked it up in the internet. She found out that was the biggest art and music festival in the world. 180,000 people go every year in 2 weekends, and the biggest stars, including Beyonce and many, many, many others, David Byrne, and, musics of all kinds from Mexico to New York City get together for 2 weekends in that very place. So we were super lucky. We did a project called Bésame Mucho, that Lenny mentioned, but the project went so well, Bésame Mucho, that they, in 2 years after, they invited us to do yet another project because the project became really popular. And that project is the one that you see here. It's called Supernova. It's a star that has just landed in the festival. It's a star made of 12 different colors, of 12 different stars that come, each one of them with a different color, that come together in this kind of a superstar. We call it supernova at the festival itself. Of course, why not? Why a star? Well, a star because in every culture that we know of, stars are symbols of hope. Let's follow, as sailors would do, let's follow the North Star. Let's go to LA, and I want to become a star in a way. Not me following your star, the girl that follows her star, the man, the boy that follows her star going west. Stars in every culture. Our own flag is full of stars. Stars are full of hope in a way, and that's what the project attempted to represent. Following this project,
just one moment. I do want to make sure. I know you have a few more slides, and I want to make sure that we give our attendees plenty of time. So
yeah.
So
this is the last project. We are on it.
I'll push him. Okay.
We're on it. So because of that, with this in mind, we were selected for a big award by the Bloomberg Foundation. to do a project with a project of a very different kind, a completely different kind of project in a way. It is a memorial,
And a
a memo-
temporary
and a
project.
temporary project, like the ones in Coachella. Actually, we do permanent projects that require of kind of knowing how to build stuff really carefully, and projects that have to be built as well, but are temporary in nature. So we decided to do something similar to what we did with Besame Mucho, a kind of super billboard. We like the idea of the super because we are in America.
In this case, explain. You should
Yeah,
explain.
I mean, we were working. The project is for Parkland. Parkland, as you all know, I'm sure, is the site of the horrific event, the killing of 13 kids. So we were selected to commemorate, in a way, the second and memorialize the second anniversary of that very event. So we work with the kids and we decided to do a project that it's called Peace and Love. And what the project is a super billboard, in a way. It's 30 feet tall by 130 feet long. The letters are about 15 feet tall, and they're made out of flowers, dollar store flowers, silk flowers,
Almost 100,000
100,000 flowers.
that we work with the kids. One
option I see is Royer's flower. Is that?
Sorry, that's Siri. Here I show you some talking about flowers. Here you see a few of the, I wanted to make it real for you. So what we do is not just fun and flowers going around. We also spend a lot of time, making sure that this is built well, because it doesn't have to, it cannot fly away. We have hurricanes in South Florida, strong winds sometimes, it has to last for 3 months. So these kind of the working drawings, the kind of technical drawings, construction documents that we go through in order to be able to build these projects. But once, after going through the pain of doing these drawings, here we see the project realized, the 100,000 flowers, crying for peace and love, and somehow expressing the will of the survivors. And we complete this presentation with a view of peace and love from the air. Thank you so much for your time and attention, and please ask as many questions as you may.
Roberto, Rosario, thank you very much. As we look at this incredible piece, and you reminded us that there is a Hollywood sign and other large city signs for the peace and love sign. I wanted to ask you, you have been showing us incredible monumental and iconic works. And how do you connect the monumental scale of your work to the human and humble experience of the people who will be engaged, tenants and affected by the work? How do you balance the monumental scale of the work with the human scale of the viewer and the visitor?
Are you on?
No.
I think that's a very, very good question, because for us, the most important component of our work and our look for inspiration, what kind of work we will be doing for this or that situation, is the connection with the viewer, with the people, with the neighbors. So what is key for us is to understand the culture and the history of the place, the event itself, but at the same time to make each of these big public works, to make them personal. So to have a direct connection to each of the individuals that see the project. And we make them personal in a sense that we use materials that we are familiar with. For example, the flowers, like Roberto said, the dollar store flowers. We had been always in contact with those flowers. We have seen them in homes, or when we go to the dollar store, we see these flowers. Now these flowers create something extraordinary, that is this super billboard that says peace and love. It's the most common simple phrase that we have heard always, but suddenly that phrase becomes so personal and so unique to the event, the killing of these kids, why this violence occurs. So now we see peace and love from another point of view.
So in a way, unlike any one of all the billboards that we have seen, we have seen thousands of billboards, and each and every one of them is asking us to consume something, of one kind or another. And
Even
suddenly
Hollywood
we
sign.
see that big, super biggest billboard anywhere, and it's not asking us to consume anything, but only to think of peace and love. And that is that because of that, it suddenly becomes extraordinary. And as it becomes extraordinary, hopefully it touches each and every one of our hearts in a kind of intimate way, as Rosario was describing.
And we want to hear from our guests, but I do need to ask you another question that you talked about taking the amazing scale and making it personal. Barney Ewell is simultaneously for our community a favorite son, an inspiration of youth and power and speed, a breakthrough against struggle of achievement of a race, an icon for his high school. How will you translate the man into this iconic kind of work? How will you capture the individual spirit against the skyline?
Luckily, we're not alone in this endeavor. Luckily, because that's perhaps the most challenging aspect of the project, because it's about that's to us that's the event. Rosario spoke history and geography. That's about the city, but the event is a celebration of this incredible man's life in a way, and the impact that he has had especially in the kids of the future, if you wish, in each one of us, but also in the kids of the future. And we're really, really lucky because the event in this case, he's honoring his life in a way. It's accompanied by a public space. That's step number one. And that's why, and step number two, I think, is that our project is not only to be accompanied, and his presence is not only going to be accompanied by the public plaza, but also by the main public library in town, which is to assure us that many, many kids and people in general are to be coming over to this very place. So that's why I speak of a team, an effort in a way, where we celebrate the parking authority who contracted us, to make this project more amicable to all. We are super excited to, in a way, working for the public library, in a way, and making that the presence of the public library within that space more visible, if you wish. And at the same time, most importantly, Mr. Ewell presence is to be celebrated, most importantly, by the encounter of all these people coming from everywhere in that very place, in that very public square. There is going to be, we had meetings with the family of Mr. Ewell, and one of the things that we know is going to be done is a bust of himself is to be incorporated. What? I'm sorry?
Sculpture.
A sculpture, a bust of himself is going to be incorporated within the plaza. And as we learn of that, we actually volunteer to free of charge create, if it's needed, a pedestal for the sculpture. And I think that's a really important part of the project, the fact that there is going to be a figurative sculpture of the man in a way. It's very much like the Martin Luther King Memorial in Washington, D.C., that needed of the physical image of the man for the man to be, to the extent possible, present within that space and celebrated. I think we think that it's a very good choice to have kind of, to the extent possible, the physical presence of the likeliness. I think you say it in English, right, of the man
But I
in the
think at the
plaza.
same time, for us, what is important is to contribute to
Yeah.
this plaza library and the Ewell commemoration of him to try to help and contribute to the plaza to make it more inclusive, not to do one work of art that means just this, because in 5 years it can mean something else. We know what we have to create is kind of a platform, an inviting work of art that celebrates this plaza that has been dedicated to Ewell itself.
This is a very good point for us to move forward in the outline of the evening. And I just want to say thank you. I love when I come into the airport that there's a map that says you are here. So you know where you are in relationship to everything else. So you are here. This team is preparing a piece of art that is part of 4 aesthetics. The library building, their work, the plaza itself, and the sculpture of Ewell. And so what we want to talk about going forward is how their piece in the puzzle that will become the environmental space enhances, advances, incorporates, engages the whole landscape. They are not responsible for the entire plaza, but for creating a significant piece. And so we want to talk about your questions focused on their piece rather than the institutional and architectural structure of the full plaza itself.
We want to start by thanking each and every one of you. There are a number of you. We have already like 150 responses to a number of questions that we forward. And the responses are incredible, and they're full of ideas that we intend to pursue. So, and they really—
but also they are full of passion about the city. We were so surprised how people express their love for the city of Lancaster and their interest to help us out, to find a way to do the best that we can. So this is an opportunity to thank to everybody that have answered the questions. We are still reading them. There are so many, but they are so inspiring.
Yeah.
But mostly because of the love that the people feel for the city and how proud they are for the beauty of this little jewel.
Excellent. So John, Yarlene, Amber, take us forward in the process.
Yep. Amber, I think you're going to start with one of the questions from the Q&A, right?
Yes, so we had one come in earlier. That's a great question. Any chance we can incorporate a living green wall as part of this design, from Stephanie Sands?
That would be beautiful. We have a garage in Miami that has a complete green wall, 4, 5, 6 story height. But the thing is that Miami, it has a weather that allows a green wall to be green all the time.
Yeah. Not a fake green wall, but a real
one.
You know.
And it could be lovely, but the problem here, we have winter and the leaves will fall and you will.
But we are confident. We're confident that the landscape architects that was selected by, I believe, by the Landscape Authority or the city, it's very, very good, and we're hopeful that they will do as much landscaping as possible. My understanding of the square is that it's a very, very green environment. So we're lucky and happy to be working with them. Actually, they're an important, very, very, perhaps the most important part of the team, to tell you the truth, from the point of view that perhaps you're asking your question, the presence of the green, the presence of shade. I mean, those of you who are bold like me appreciate very, very much any kind of shade, trust me. So I know that in summer you may need it here. So it looks like in the drawings that we have seen of the plaza that they're working on that diligently. I mean, the landscape architect. So.
And I'd like to come back later on to this conversation about the equation of aesthetics that will form the final project. A landscape artist, architect for the plaza, a sculpture artist, and your work all fitting together. But Amber, will you have another question?
Yeah, I think, and other panelists can correct me, but I think we're going to address some of this in the survey questions if we want to maybe take some of the raised hands. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay. All right, Lucas, we're going to add you in. All right, go ahead.
Cool, thank you. My name is Lucas Stacy. I'm a Lancaster City resident. I appreciate you guys taking the time to introduce us in this discussion and make it very much a two-way conversation. My question would be, we've already heard thousands of influences and things like the library and the parking authority and tons of voices through communications like this, the city residents themselves. Then you take it a step further and you try and marry it to the historical significance of Lancaster being a federal capital, the state capital, oldest inland city in the United States. How do you take that and then combine it with where we're going, being a refugee or a sanctuary for refugees, a thriving economic sector, proud foodie establishment? There are just an innumerable number of things to try and encapsulate in a single space. How do you folks prioritize what you find inspiration from and what we could expect to see reflected in the installation that you guys create?
Thank you so much for the question, Lucas. One of the things that you said that we are most proud of because of working in this project, and we thank you again for the opportunity of working this project, is because we understand we understand personally what the situation of refugees is actually, and to be working in a city like yours, where that is, I believe, the city with the highest percentage of refugees in the country. It means not only that you have the highest, I like to put it in a different way. You are the city that has the biggest heart in the country, to tell the truth. And to be working in this city with the biggest heart in the country, in a way, being as open as you have been with people coming from all over the world, is something that it's very, very meaningful to us personally. And it's personal because we also came from a difficult country. We come from Argentina, where there was a military dictatorship, where Rosario's sister was killed, where his brother was in jail for 5 years without a trial. And eventually we had the opportunity to come here and begin anew, luckily when we were very young. So we understand personally the issue, and we thank you for having such an open heart. How do you translate that into a work of art is an enigma until the work of art actually happens. If I had the formula to tell you, okay, we're going to do 1, 2, and 3, that's it. But perhaps, for example, in this conversation, you brought up an issue, and I mentioned the word heart. Well, maybe it takes the form of a heart somehow, for example. I don't really know. But what you can be sure is that we feel, we understand who you are in a way, meaning the city. We understand who you are. We understand.
And I think the project, what we want to do is to celebrate this welcoming city, this city that it has a big heart. We won't be able to represent exactly each of the reasons why the city has a big heart.
And but the historical events that you mentioned that are key,
exactly,
actually, that are important.
But maybe, I hope, what we can do is to celebrate the spirit of the city, where one can interpret it from one reason that they love the city, and another one can interpret it from another reason. But it has to be as welcoming, inclusive, and inspiring as possible without saying is this or is that. But yes, to celebrate this city that's incredible. When we first came here, we couldn't believe all the houses with, on top of that, is a city that likes to talk to to the people that walk through the city. There is always a sign saying something, or Black Lives Matters, or welcome to people from all over the world. This is your home. We love you. I don't know. It's something
It's
that
really amazing.
we
It's-
never saw it before. And it's so refreshing. And the love that people have for the city, how they take care of the sidewalks, the facades, the flowers, the colors, how they paint the frame. It's like people that want to talk. It's not that people that are living inside their homes. It's people that wants to go and come. The sidewalk, the houses are super small. The sidewalks are super thin, but you see a whole expression of happiness and desire to connect with the other, with the little flower pots and the colors. Today we were talking with a neighborhood in Duke Street where they have these planters that they adopt. Each one adopt a different planter and pots, and they plant,
pots.
and it's incredible. And so we are so excited and surprised to see the life of the city in this
and
way.
it happens in different neighborhoods, you know, because sometimes it happens in the best. I mean, Duke Street is a beautiful street, completely, you know, super clean. I mean, super in every regard, you know. The flower pots are beautiful, you know, neighbors kind of take care of each one of them, etc. But we also were in other parts of town, you know, where there is like a vegetable community garden. And that was also beautiful to see people working in a vegetable garden and sharing the crops, you know, of these vegetable garden. That is in the spirit of the city. Both instances are expression of sharing in a way. The same
Amber,
expression that
let's
that
use
often
the
consists
artist's
many.
energy and excitement to fuel us to the next hand up.
Okay, we don't have any other hands, but we do have some more Q&A. I got booted off, so I'm not seeing some, but Yarlene will ask those shortly. One I am seeing is from Anita Pilkerton Plum, who
Okay.
says, is it possible to include design elements that are interactive, not just a sitting space, but audio or visual components that engage people in squares to look, wonder, figure something out, or be curious?
Well, I think that the
things,
plaza give us a great plaza or square. I'm sorry, I'm talking Spanish. The square give us a great opportunity for temporary works of art. That it could be a screen that is someplace in the plaza where you can project this video works, or a place for performance, or temporary sculptures that rotate. So it's not that it's one artist doing one work, but they rotate. One day is performance, the next month is a temporary sculpture that may last for 1, 2 months, 3 months, and then it rotates to another artist. The same thing with screens and videos. So it's kind of a platform for the artist's expression, the square itself. That could be fantastic.
So we actually mentioned this to the city and mentioned that the Ewell Plaza is going to be a great opportunity. It's going to be a great opportunity because you have the library, you have the library that provides, you know, live all time of the year at all times. Within the year, there's going to be people. You have the parking structure where you can park actually and come down for events Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon. So the city, in my opinion, one of the things that perhaps the public art program can implement is a program of temporary artworks that over the year are set within the plaza and give new life to Ewell Plaza through the year. So, for example, there could be a month where African American culture is celebrated. There could be another month where Hispanic culture is celebrated. Another month where Quaker culture or Amish culture is celebrated with specific works of art directed to these different events. You know, there's so many ways that a public art, once you have a beautiful square, you know, that is very, very green, as suggested actually, with the library, you know, with our work and parking,
Yes, and
all the components, you know, kind of come together. as a platform for,
Expression.
not one, but many, many artists over time, hopefully.
Thank you. John has a question that was emailed to him.
Yep.
John, would you share that?
Yep, this was emailed to me by somebody who was unable to attend tonight, but knew I would be involved. And their question is, how do you approach this in order to make sure that this is a work? I mean, we know that there's themes to some of your projects in other communities. How do you work to deliver a work of art that's unique to the city of Lancaster and doesn't too closely resemble designs that you've used in other communities?
Like we said it before, we always, before we start any project, we go to the place. We try to get involved with as much people as we can, understand the event, what we are working, what we are doing, understand the culture, the history. And also there is another component to this, the geography of the place, the culture and history of the place, the event itself, but also is in somehow our, not materials, because we work with different materials, but our, how would you say, our way to communicate what we find out. So if you see our work, a lot of times we work with flowers, that it could be real flowers, the shape of flowers in metal, but this change radically depending on the subject. Sometimes we work with colors, with stripes,
Stars.
and with stars. We have done like 10 different projects, but it is always different.
Yeah.
But we try first to know what the place tell us, and then what kind of elements we will use to assimilate, to try to communicate about what we have learned or what we want to celebrate of the place. But the important thing is to be able to understand and celebrate the idea of the place, regardless of the material. Could be this material or could be the other material.
So today, for example, we were able to imagine, think in part because of your questions, we were able to imagine, this phrase that I think is really important, the more I think about it, the more I like it, the Americans, the city with the biggest heart in America, that to me is really a synthesis of an experience that one finds in this place. We also find in this place the fact that this is the smallest cosmopolitan city in the world. That is because you can hear people from all over the world, walking by, and languages from all over, and restaurants
food,
from all
exactly.
over. So, but it's a small city. Usually you find that in Chicago, you find that in San Francisco, perhaps, of course, in New York City, but not in a smaller town.
Yes, we were driving across other towns here in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and you don't find that. You don't find that in.
And then we realized, because we were surprised when we came to Lancaster, how cosmopolitan in a way it was, because the different type of peoples, and then we thought that we will see it in other places.
We went to York, we went to Marietta. Thank you for all the suggestions, Marietta and Columbia. And they're beautiful little towns. It's much more smaller. They're like villages. Columbia and Marietta is particular. They're very, very nice. But the spirit of these towns is very, very different from the one that we find here in Lancaster. So
I forgot the question now.
Yeah.
Where we were.
Well, but I think you gave us enough cloth that we could cut an answer out of the information. But we have other questions and other comments. With the time, I want to make sure we get as many voices in here.
Yeah, I think we're going to move on about 7:15 to the survey questions. So we have one more raised hand. I'm going to add Eileen in. If you want to take 90 seconds or so to ask, and then have some time for an answer. All right, Eileen, go ahead.
She's mute.
There we
There
go.
she goes.
Okay. I'd ask Joanna Davis, what would have to stay the same and what could be changed in the artwork? And she said that what has to stay the same is the material that is used and how it is fastened to the wall. So I would like to know what material do you plan to use, because all we have seen is a picture of aluminum tubing, vertical aluminum tubing in very colorful striping that not everyone has been very amenable to.
Mhm. Two things in that regard. First, if we had the answer to you, this meeting wouldn't make any sense. So for this meeting to have to make sense, we really don't have an answer, a complete answer. What are we going to do? It is true though, that aluminum in general, not aluminum tubes, rounded or, et cetera, but it's true that aluminum is a very good material, a long-lasting material, for a permanent structure. I would love to do something with silk flowers. We would love to do that, like we did in Coachella or we did with Peace and Love, but it wouldn't last very long. It won't last more than 3, 4, 5 months, to tell the truth, in the shape that we wanted. On the other hand, we did the project with the flowers in a parking garage. We did a project with the flowers, and it's in perfect shape after 2 or 3 years.
But it's in aluminum.
And it's in aluminum. So on the one hand, the material is something that is not fixed. Perhaps it can be different, but that is one that is cost effective. We don't have millions of dollars to work with. We have a very generous but limited budget in a way,
And a big facade.
and a huge facade.
Let me serve very quickly on Eileen's question and ask this question. How will the information that you've gathered from these 2 sessions and the experience that you've had in Lancaster inform and affect the outcome of the work?
Mainly, I think I said it before, but of course, when you do a project, people even reading the questions of everybody.
Different opinions.
There are different opinions. If you ask, one of the questions was, what type of public art do you like? And you have all the range possible in the world of public art. There are some things that are very, that everybody more or less answers the same, that is about the colors of the city. And another thing that transpired very, very clear is the love of the people for the city. So what we have to do is, I think at the end, is how all of these comments inspire us. We are already super inspired by the beauty of the city, the care and the love of the people from the city. It won't be a translation like an equation. People say this, and here is the end of the project. But it's more than anything, the inspiration and the will and the desire to keep on working and try to create an artwork that inspires, that is inclusive, that doesn't have one meaning.
Yeah, but let me say one more thing. It is for sure not everybody. I mean, we hope that everybody will be inspired by the piece. That's our best hope. We also know that not everyone would love it, and that's okay. That's understandable, because we're not here to proclaim any truth. We're here to provide a platform where questions will be asked, actually. And for us, the question is more important than the answer. In other
And
words,
I'm going to take the liberty very quickly of asking the question again, because we are making gumbo here, and all of our comments are the ingredients of the gumbo. How will you use our ingredients, our condiments, our flavors to make the recipe for the final work?
Well, I think it's what we were saying. It's going to be very spicy.
We're gonna try to include every single ingredient, in a way that is not closed, in a way that remains open for each person to read what she or he may have in mind. There is a way, perhaps, I mean, flowers can be interpreted in different ways, but flowers are always beautiful. Colors can be interpreted in different ways, but the presence of color is joyful. Perhaps there are some people that like one color more than the other. And when we asked that question, there was a prevalence of people that loved red, and we were
Not love red. They see red in
they
the
see
city
red in
of
the
like-
city, and we understand that because we see a lot of brick, and then we see red doorways, and then we see
and the
red
brick
windows,
painted in red.
so we
yes.
understand that. We also see the presence of other colors around town, but the presence of a house that is light yellow and one that is red right next to it, or one that is light blue next to one that is white and next to one that is black,
And then
that
all
is
the-
really interesting
And
for
the
us.
flowers, the color
Today
flowers.
we were walking through streets, and don't ask me which one was the street, but there were a number of I call them, row houses or townhouses. I don't know how you guys call them, but the typical, Lancaster house, with the stoop, the three-step stoop, let's say, going up, sometimes 2 windows, sometimes 3 windows, sometimes 5 windows. That's
Or
the biggest
one,
one,
or one window.
or but what we found in every one of them, it was really beautiful to look down the street and to see one color, after the other. Each of the houses were all done in brick, but each one of them was painted in a different color. That was inspiring to us because it showed how one and many, like our motto, the American motto, one unis plus unum, I can't remember it exactly, speaks of. It's one street made out of brick, and then each person has
Exactly.
their own
The houses
expression.
are very
if you
similar,
wish.
but the expression.
The houses are identical, not
Yes.
similar in that street. They are identical. They're exactly the same. One might be two modules, the other one may have one more window, but the way that they're painted, both the brick or not painted, just red brick, or there was one in black, one in light yellow, one in light blue. Around the corner there's another color. There isn't one color. There are many at
And
the same
then
time.
the frame of the windows in another color, and then the flower pots. So it's our first idea. This is the most
So they're all
colorful
done in
city.
brick, but they're all somehow completed in a way that is personal to each of the owners or the renters of the home. And that is, to me, that's very beautiful, actually.
And that's a good
Yeah.
place to bring us back to Amber.
Yeah, so thank you. That was all great. We're going to move now into some of the questions that we have for the public. So Yarlene, if you want to pull those up. Okay, so I think especially because of time, we have about 10 minutes left. We have all of the questions up that we have for you. I can read through them really quickly and then raise your hand or put in the chat your responses to any of these. So the first is, describe the city of Lancaster in the future. Second is, how can Ewell Plaza as a public space contribute to the community? The third is, what historical events in Lancaster are most meaningful to you? And what is a word or phrase that represents local hero and international athlete Barnett Ewell? Please put if you're putting in the chat, please put the number question that you're answering. We're going to save all of this. So as they start coming in, I will read them off. But even if we run out of time, please just keep sending them in, because as I said, we're saving this chat for reference. Or if you
While we're
want,
waiting for you to put your answers in, I remind you that this is not the end of the process, but the beginning of the process. And as our time runs out this evening, I invite you The Public Arts Advisory Board meeting is the second Monday of every month. The last 20 minutes are for public input. So if you have a question that rises like bread out of you're thinking about this in the days to come, or a question that you wanted to get to, or a statement, please, I invite you to attend. We are still in a Zoom process, but I invite you to look to the Public Arts Programs website for the dates of our meetings and come and place your input in that public meeting. Also, I underline the score that the 7 members of the board are divided into subcommittees, and Joanne McGran is the subcommittee co-chair for the Ewell Plaza. So you can address a question to John, or you can come and address your question at our public meeting. And now I think you've got some in there, Amber.
Yes, we have, let me scroll back. Someone answering number 1 said that Lancaster, vibrant, eclectic, welcoming, and a slice of America. Let's see what else. Also, if anyone wants to speak, feel free to raise your hand and we'll let you talk. All right, got another answering number 2. Downtown Lancaster is a vital meeting place, a place where we celebrate together, old and young people, lots of diversity where we can laugh and be happy together. We want all city people to use this public space. And then someone commented that they're not answering any of these questions, but said, please consider looking at Lancaster as a window, looking inward and outward, and how others see us. Also keep looking at our beautiful window boxes.
Very nice.
Nice.
I'd love to hear something about 3 and 4 if you have comments on 3 and 4.
While people are typing, I'm going to get the link to the survey and share that in the chat. So if anyone has thoughts after the meeting that hasn't taken the survey yet, they can share them there.
And forgive me for my redundancy, but if you have a question that you think of tomorrow or next week, or something that came out of the conversation, again, either address it to our subcommittee chair, John McGran, or come and speak in the public engagement session of our monthly meeting, the second Monday.
If I may make an announcement also. Those of you who might be interested in learning more about our work, next Friday, I believe, we are going to be giving a lecture via Zoom, of course, in South Africa with the Graduate School of Architecture in Johannesburg. So those of you, I'm sure that if you Google GSA Johannesburg or
Johannesburg University
or University of Johannesburg, you may get the information for the Zoom. I think it's a Zoom or a Teams meeting.
that
So
it
we're going
will
to
be at 12 noon.
12
our
noon,
time,
yeah, our
because
time. It's at 6 o'clock or 8 o'clock their time, and we're gonna. I think it's 12 o'clock our time, noon our time. But they will be impressed if they see that people from Lancaster, join us. So
in South Africa.
they're all welcome to join us.
You can also find many of your answers about Roberto and Rosario's process by visiting their website, where you'll find a lot of information and content about the projects that you've seen presented tonight.
And we also have an Instagram account called RR Studios Miami that you're welcome to check out.
How are we doing with the input and questions, Amber? And is
Yeah.
anyone's hand up?
No hands are up, but we're getting some comments. I'm scrolling back through to see what I can read.
We probably have time for one
Yeah.
or two.
Okay, here we go. Okay. This is from someone who was unable to come but submitted some questions. They said, this was about the colors of Lancaster. One of the online questions required some thought. What 3 colors do I think represent Lancaster? My answers are brick red for our historic architecture, green, Lancaster is a Tree City USA status, and wonderful private and public gardens, and light brown, which is a blend of many skin colors of city residents. Someone answered number 3 about historical events that are meaningful, that they just love the variety of street festivals that we have. An answer to number 2 that says the plaza will hopefully be a friendly place for all to hang out in good weather. See another answer related to number 2. The Ewell Plaza has been named for a great Lancaster athlete known for his running ability and positive character. How will the concept of motion and fluidity be expressed in the artwork?
This is a very good one. How do you translate the literal impact of his speed into the spiritual aesthetic of the abstract work?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We noticed the trees. I mean, I have to say, I mean, it's amazing how green is the city. It's yesterday we take advantage every single night. We have walked through the city extensively, 5 miles or so, and it's really amazing the amount of green that you have. It's really, really amazing. Both at the edge, the parks here in the cemetery, but also the tree-lined streets are really, really nice. Both those are narrower in the historical core, and beyond the first historical core, we know the plan very well. You have the historical core with the orthogonal grid, let's say, and then you have these diagonal grids that come into the historical core. It's really interesting to see the different widths of streets and how there is one kind of tree or another, in one time or another, how there are gardens in certain parts of town and there are no gardens in others, but yet in front of the townhouses you have,
little piece of
little
garden,
gardens, that
full
people
of
enjoy
plants.
planting, or the pots in other streets. There is a real range of green, from the pots to these I don't know how you call them, areas in front of the townhouses, to the gardens themselves,
to the
the
parks.
parks, to the way of cutting through blocks and finding ways, green ways through the city. I think there's one that a train used to go by, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Green is an important part.
There is an important point, Rosario and Roberto, that one of our colleagues made this evening, that we often think of Barney Ewell only as a runner and his speed, but he was a complex man in the best sense of that word, with multiple contributions to the city. And the person asked that we open up our thinking about the man not only as one-dimensional athlete, but the full scope of his time here, his gift to the city and his cultural expression.
Exactly. We have the opportunity to speak with his daughter, and we have, I don't know, for like an hour or 2 hour long chat with her, and it was so inspiring.
And one of the things that we learned,
the life of Barney. So it's incredible. It's incredible. And then we try to research more, but talking with his daughter, it was so touchy, so beautiful.
Yeah, especially at the time that he did it. Today we still have many of the problems that he had to confront, but no doubt about it, it was even more difficult then than now. So, I mean, it's difficult to get a full understanding from our time of his achievement, but for sure it was amazing.
This has been such a rich exchange. My colleague, John, is giving us a 2-minute warning. So we'll need
Yeah,
to
so if you
thank you
have,
very much, John.
If you feel like you haven't added your comments yet, either via the chat or by talking, please do so. While we give you a little bit more time for that, I'm gonna get, thanks, Amber. There's a couple next steps. The first thing is, well, first of all, Amber did note that we didn't take the time to read each comment that we got out loud, but we can add those to the Engage Lancaster platform. Engage Lancaster is the platform the city's been using for community engagement around some important topics, including this one. Amber just added that to the chat, the link to that. On that, the full survey is there. If you have not completed the survey yet, there's a great this is a great opportunity to still do that. That survey remains open until May 28th, I think, Amber and Yarlene, is that right? So you have a few more days to participate in the full survey at that. And that's also where you can go to read more detail of the comments that we heard from people tonight. And from there will be, there is another visit or another public meeting planned with Roberto and Rosario. That date is not yet determined, I don't think. Is that we're still working on finalizing that date? Is that right?
Yes. We don't know yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
not sure.
When that is coming, we will that'll be publicized the best we can. Certainly on the city's platforms, as well as hopefully in the newspaper and other places. I think those are the most important next step to discuss. Amber, Yarlene, did I miss anything? Okay. Lenwood, do you want to offer some closing comments?
I just remind you that as Yarlene and Amber are staff of the city and agents for the project, the Public Arts Advisory Board is the voice of the people and the public trust. So we are the 2 points of that triangle, the artists, both Roberto and Rosario as artists, and the artists in our community who collaborate with them, make the equilateral triangle that's going to bring this project to fruition. And so we need to be like the starfish. We need you to go out and talk to your colleagues, your friends, share. There are some myths and some truths about this project in our community. We would like you each to engage your circle of friends, colleagues, and neighbors about this. Over the fence, through the back window is the best way to communicate what's going on as we watch the construction and the project take momentum and fruition. I thank you, Roberto and Rosario, for 2 days of very delightful exchange. I encourage all of our friends and family in the community to change the weapons of your intent into tools for your engagement. And let's build a better community together.
And we promise to do the best that we can. Trust us. Thank you.
Thank you, Lenny.
Thank you all. I think we've come to the crossroads, and we'll say goodnight, but not goodbye. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Everyone have a good night. Thanks so much for attending.
Yep.
Thank you, guys. We'll
Thank
see you
you.
soon again
We'll
Bye.
see you soon again. And thank you for the hospitality.
and everything.
All right. Yeah.
We'll see.
Thanks to the attendees for being here and contributing tonight. We greatly appreciate it.
Bye.